Well, good evening. I pray the Lord has blessed you this day. Uh, we talked about freedom on Sunday. I preached about how we have to fight for our right to be free spiritually because Satan wants to put us in bondage, kill, steal, destroy with your habits, with situations in your life, anything he can do to put you in bondage so that you're not free. Uh, Tomorrow is 4th of July when we talk about our independence, being set free. Um, but I want to talk to you about something a little bit different today as I was thinking about freedom and the bondage that we get in sometimes, that we put ourselves in sometimes, that situations cause to arise. Uh, I think one of the greatest here in the U.S., especially, one of the greatest bondages that there is financial debt. We have been raised in a society in this last few generations where we have an abundance of everything, and yet we have the greatest debt, individual debt, of any nation in the world. We have the most money but the most debt, and it's always want something a little bit better, a little nicer. This one's getting old, so I want a new one. And it just puts us in a situation where it does put us in bondage. I want to read to you from Romans 13 and verse 8. It's very simple what it says. It says, "Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves one another has fulfilled the law." It starts out, says, "Owe no one anything except love." Wisdom tells us that we should not be in debt. Wisdom tells us that if we have to go into debt, then we quickly pay it off, get that burden off of our back, off of our shoulders. And then Proverbs 22:7, it talks about the rich. It says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender." If you owe money for a car, for your house, for credit cards, all the millions of things that we owe money for today, we have basically made ourselves a slave to the lender, because then we must, the more we are in debt, the more hours we have to work, the more times we have to look for better jobs, different jobs with more hours, more pay, and it's just an ugly cycle that we've grown up in, and basically is destroying our society and destroying the joy and the peace that we have. And this is especially true with Christians. When we listen to what the Lord says and read what the scriptures say, then we realize that we're not supposed to be in debt to anyone as much as is humanly possible. And I understand sometimes, I know very few people could buy a home without going into debt. But then the question is begged, do I have to own a home? Could I not rent a home? And I know what people say, well, it's just throwing good money after bad, because then you never own anything. But is that bondage worth it? And in order to get out of debt, you have to have a lot of stamina, a lot of courage. You got to get a hold of yourself. I've talked to people before, said, okay, you buy a car and you finally get it paid for, and most people, their first thought is, well, then let's go look for another one. If that car's still running, that car's still in good shape, there's no need to go after another. So then we take that money that we were paying for the car payment, and we buy a new TV, we buy more clothes, we find something else to spend it on, to use it on, to go in debt with, instead of taking that money and put it back just like you were making the car payment, put it in savings, and then by the time that car breaks down, then you've got enough money, or maybe almost enough money to pay cash for a car. But we don't do that. We take that money and we up our standard of living. Something breaks, we need a new fridge, so we take that money and go into bondage to get a new fridge. You know the story. We all live it, or have lived it. And talking about freedom, there is a great freedom, a great independence in not owing anybody anything. It's a peace inside your heart and your spirit, a peace in the flesh and the mind, to know that you're not indebted to anyone. Spiritually, we're always indebted to Christ, but in the flesh, in the physical, to not be indebted to anyone should be every Christian's goal, should be every person's goal, but especially every Christian's goal, so that we can be free to do what God's called us to do. So I encourage you today, as much as humanly possible, try to get out of debt. Don't up your lifestyle. And I know it's harder today with inflation and everything higher than it is. We barely live as it is. But live with what you got. Be happy. Paul says to be content with everything you have. Learn to be content. It's worth it to be out of debt, to be free. So just my 2 cents on freedom. Hope this has encouraged someone to move that direction. And I pray that God will bless you and help you do it. I love you. See you next week. Bye-bye.